The most famous fact about ancient Sparta: weak or sickly babies were thrown off a cliff. It's in movies, in books, in school textbooks. There's just one problem. Archaeologists actually went and checked that cliff, and they found something that shouldn't be there. This isn't a minor detail in some obscure book. It's one of the most repeated facts about the ancient world, used to prove just how brutal Spartan society was. Today, we're tracing exactly where this story came from and what actually happened at that cliff. Here's the problem with this story. It comes from exactly one source. The biographer Plutarch, writing roughly 500 to 600 years after classical Sparta's peak. He wasn't a contemporary, he was writing something closer to legend collection, centuries after the fact. No Spartan source from the actual classical period, no contemporary writer from that era, ever confirms this practice. In 2007, a team of Greek and British anthropologists actually excavated the gorge long associated with this story, a site called the Apothetae. Over the course of their research, they recovered the remains of roughly a dozen or so individuals, and every single one, based on bone analysis, was an adult male between 18 and 35 years old. Not one infant skeleton. Not one child. So what was this place actually used for? The evidence points towards something else entirely, a site for executing adult criminals and traitors, a form of punishment that shows up across many ancient societies. The mass infanticide, on the scale that textbooks describe, simply isn't showing up in the archaeological record. None of this means Spartan child-rearing was gentle. Ancient sources do confirm that a council of elders reviewed newborns and made decisions about their upbringing. But a growing number of researchers now believe that weaker infants were more likely handed off to other families or sent outside Sparta, rather than literally thrown off a cliff. What we know for certain is that Spartan upbringing was brutally strict. From around age 7, boys were taken into a state military training system called the Gorge, where they were deliberately hardened through hunger, cold, and physical trials. That part is historical fact. It's just not the same thing as systematic infanticide. Here's something the myth actually distracts from. Sparta didn't need an invented horror story to be strange by ancient Greek standards. Spartan women had far more legal rights, property ownership, and physical education than women almost anywhere else in the ancient Greek world, something most other Greek city-states considered scandalous. Sparta's real differences from its neighbors were often more interesting than the fiction built on top of it. So, why did the cliff story stick around for so long? Partly because it fits a story we already wanted to believe about Sparta, the ultra-harsh warrior society, brutal beyond reason. A 5-second detail like this is easy to repeat, easy to remember, and makes for a dramatic textbook sidebar. The actual archaeology is slower, messier, and far less quotable, which is exactly why it took 2,000 years for anyone to go check. Sparta doesn't need a fabricated horror story to be a harsh, disciplined civilization. It already was one, without the cliff. But the story of thousands of infants thrown to their deaths is most likely a legend, written down 500 years after the fact by someone who never saw classical Sparta with his own eyes. Sometimes the most shocking fact in your textbook is just a good story that never got fact-checked. If you want more of history's stories cracked open with the actual evidence, subscribe. New episodes are coming.